pay your loans.
Oh, let's not.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta pay.
That's a sensitive topic of conversation.
Yeah, loans. That's tough.
You know.
But we're here.
I'm still looking for Sally Mae, so
right.
when somebody find
I
Sally Mae, tell Sally Mae I'm bringing the smoke.
So speaking of Sally Mae loans and a little bit of stress behind it, right? Yeah. I wanted to give you guys a nice introduction to who I brought on today. We'll start with Free. Freedom is one of those individuals I was supporting a friend of mine, and he told me he was there for his cousin. Cousin performed spoken word, and I fell in love. I was like, this girl is amazing. And then that was a couple years ago, and it's been quite some time. So, Freedom is out there doing really good work. If you want to introduce yourself and give them a proper.
Yeah. So my name is Free. I love, respect to freedom. A lot of people do that because my Instagram is, free_DOM. So it does say freedom. But now they're starting to put me on bills as Freedom, and my name is Free, Phree. But yeah, what was the question?
No, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, Free. Free is the proper name
me.
for you.
I do a lot of things, but spoken word artist, I guess, because society will also force you to box yourself sometimes, and so right now, spoken word is what's giving me life in a lot of ways. But I'm looking to branch that into other things. I will name that I'm the founder of Boys and Bullshit, which is an organization for masculine-centered queer people of color. And it is designed to be a healing space for us and needing to reshape masculinity in a lot of ways, especially to in queer relationships, be it platonic, whatever, and with self, just in the community, in the queer community in general. And that's the community I can speak to because I identify as queer. So I created a space for that at the beginning of the year. So I do that, and
appreciate you
I'm in the
coming
process
on.
of doing other things. But thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate this conversation.
Appreciate it. And D Ruff, man. D Ruff is another spoken word artist.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I try to jump on and learn a lot about you. I see you're a host as well. So
yes.
Spoken words, you're a host.
Yeah.
Got a good personality. You're comical as well, and also deep. You're a deep thinker with some fun behind it. So if you want to introduce yourself, what are you up to these days?
I'm D Ruff. D.RUFF. Yes, I am a spoken word artist. I have been a co-host of the If You Can Feel It, You Can Speak It open mic for the last 10 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 10 years.
Yeah, can we give it up for 10 years?
Yeah,
man. Give it up for 10 years, man. That's a long time.
Woo.
Super dope.
Yeah, man. And recently I became creative director of a program called Boston Pulse Poetry, which brings in spoken word to Black and brown children in inner city schools or inner city Boston for us, and provides them with self-identifying poetry. Or if they aren't feeling poetry and spoken word isn't their thing, we try to find whatever art and craft is their voice and help them to amplify it.
So thank you for coming on. We appreciate you for being here.
Thank you.
Really
thank
do.
You. This is dope.
Absolutely. So when I reached out to you guys, I think the conversation was, mental health. I've been through a lot recently, and I know I was able to relate. I know you've been through some stuff, and you've been through some stuff too. So it's more about just understanding how we can have that dialogue and get that out there for other people that may be going through it, what you guys have done. So I want to be able to learn from you guys, personal stories, kind of deep dive into what mental health is and maybe what resources are out there that can really help us. So we'll get straight into it. I'll talk about what's the causes of mental health, and then we can kind of relate it to how it affected you personally. So some of the causes for mental health is child abuse, trauma, neglect, social isolation, loneliness, discrimination and stigma, social disadvantage, poverty, debt, which is why debt is a big part of it. We have social disadvantage, long-term stress, long-term physical health condition, losing someone, bereavement, unemployment, losing your job. That's a big topic these days. Homelessness, and then drug, alcohol, and abuse. So, based off of those, I know you guys can have experienced it in some form. So we can start with you, Free. What is some of those times that you feel like some of those have affected you, and kind of like walk us through your story? D, way to start.
Excuse me. Whoa. So I mean, that's broad, right?
So for me, like one that touched me really was the losing of a job. Like I wasn't working in banking for a long time. I made the transition. I was kind of in limbo. I was like, that was kind of a stressful moment. So for me, for you guys, would be like I don't know which one of those resonated the most, but that's what resonated me right away because it was kind of a tough transition period.
Well, so in my poetry, I talk a lot about intergenerational trauma and trauma within, from generations. It's systemic, right, in its root, but like definitely, curates itself within family dynamics, cultural upbringings, and things like that. And there's a lot of ways that I've experienced trauma within my home as a child. A lot of physical, emotional, psychological abuse, abandonment being a huge deal, a huge thing. My father wasn't very present, or rather when he was present, it was very inconsistent, which created an unhealthy dynamic there. So I'm, it's interesting, of course I've suffered, I've lost a job and I've been broke all my life, and like we were just talking about debt and loans, and
that kind of hit you real quick too. Sally Mae hit you.
Yeah, because I'm like a lot in debt. I got a bachelor's degree because society forced you to think. Thank you.
Shout that out, right? Even throughout the trauma, even throughout death, you still might find a way to get your bachelor's. So
yeah, not for nothing. It was just my mom was super militant and super, traditional in a lot of ways. And that thing you had to do was get that paper. That was the thing you had to do. And so and not for nothing, it saved me in a lot of ways. It gave me something to focus on. When everything else was falling apart, I've lived on my own since I was 17 years old. So I went through college, by myself, on my own. And, having to balance that. And, so stress definitely, and it put me in debt. And it definitely, I'm still, currently relieving that stress. But I think what's more recent for me coming up when we talk about mental health, or we talk about mental illness, we talk about things maybe later on. I know there's some notes about things we'll get into about disorders and all those things, but there are some things that I'm picking through. I'm currently also in the process of writing a book called The Art of Unpacking from the Inside Out. And a couple of years ago, I started to write that book, and it was, given the idea that we all come with baggage, right? In life, we come from some childhood, something, or
Absolutely.
through life, period, even if you had the perfect childhood, but in some dynamic, you have carried some baggage with you, even through relationships with other people. And I think that individually, it became important for me to unpack my own stuff. And
can you walk me through that, kind of the unpacking process? How did you unpack, or what did you start? What does that even look like? Because
excuse my language, but fucking up.
Yeah, word.
Yeah, for real.
Word.
Hurting people I love, because when you don't deal with your shit, that becomes toxic for other relationships and other people that you interact with, and you become that person that has hurt you, that has abandoned you, that has fed you trauma. You become that person if you don't deal with it, and that becomes reciprocal. And that became reciprocal for me in my relationships, platonic and romantic, especially with my relationship with women.
Absolutely.
And being masculine of center, and what that was like, and what that is like in those dynamics of masculinity and femininity and the roles we take on, and gender role. We could get into a whole bag of that, which we're not going to touch, but that brings on a lot of, you know, the way society shapes masculinity and the ways we carry ourselves and the ways that we take from maybe the men that we've learned from in our lives, you know, and that be toxic. If we don't see healthy relationships or healthy patterns, then all we can give is the stuff we know. And it took me really like up until recently, you know, to really get hit on the head, because I'm a lover at heart, you know. I love love. I love love. And it's hard when I kept saying that out loud, like I love love. I want to love. Like I want to get married. I want to have children. I want to be a parent. Like, how do you do that? You know, my whole view on love and what I knew to be love was screwed up.
Absolutely.
And so it took like really losing everything that I love and it really hurting me in that way to be like, something, I gotta figure this out.
Absolutely.
You know, and then you start addressing shit, the shit that is hard to face, and you face that shit head on.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're used to doing it a certain way. You've been kind of like handling all your issues on your own, like going through college, fires, putting them on yourself, just understanding like you've been out there just handling it. And then when these things come back to fruition, you're like, wait a minute, like this is actually a real issue that I've never actually dealt with, because I've been in the trenches just working my ass off, so I never thought about it coming back. And I think that's where it comes back, and so because we don't ever really put it away.
And don't get me wrong, I have a community, like I have people, I have village, like, you know, I've known D since I was 16 years old, you know what I'm saying? And like, he's been super.
But he's family at this point.
He's super, and this, I've had one of the toughest years this last year, and my man has been my rock, you know, for the last year. Like, I literally am alive today because of this man in a lot of ways. And so, it's not just for you doing this on your own, but like, you know, I think that it's necessary we just having this conversation to understand how important it is to not be by yourself and to really reach for people that, you know, want to love you. And I struggled with that for a long time. You know, in my family dynamics, I was raised where my mother, my sister, and me were the only people I was like, my mother was like, you can only trust us and nobody else, and that's it. And like, so you grow up with this like, who, what, nah, skirt. And I got people that are like, actually, I want to love on you and I want to nurture you and I want to feed you knowledge. And I'm like, I can't, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely. And then I'm running home to say something and like, really, to be honest. And I say these things openly because this is very an open part of who I am, you know, in my art. But like, and my mom is very present in my art too. Like, she comes to all my shows. Shout out to my mom.
She was there when I met you.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah, so she knows like that these are things that I'm going to be talking about and that I have been talking about. But like, that's some, you know, my mom was very abusive, you know, physically and verbally and emotionally. Me and my sister experienced a lot of trauma with my mom, and you know, with it just being us three and her being like, you know, can you imagine being like, I love you, I'm a, you know, violate you in these ways, because my mom's hurt because she's in her experience with infidelity in her relationship and toxic relationship she had with my father that I saw as a child. Like, that was the relationships I was, you know, like experiencing and like pulling from. And at one point I was a daddy's girl. Like, I absorbed everything, my father, you know what I'm saying? And I used to watch my mom. Like, I just saw a lot of things that was really traumatic for a young person at 6 and at 7 and experiencing, you know, those things. So yeah, and that's what led me to like my poetry and like writing this book. And that you said, you know, going back to the steps you take to unpack, like, or what that means, you know. And for me, in my experience, what I did with that was say, this is coming out creatively, right? Like, just naturally came out where I started writing poems. Like, I started thinking of things. I started to like really sit with stuff, and I started writing. What am I gonna do with this? This is energy. This is experience. This is stories. Like, what am I gonna do with this? And I was like, I'm gonna start performing this. I'm just gonna say it out loud. Like, I'm just gonna, and I started performing it. I started writing my book, and like, that was a form of healing for me in therapy. You know, and I didn't realize that I would then become like an artist because of it. Like, it didn't start as me wanting to be an artist. It started as me like searching for a voice, you know, searching for a place to get it out. Yeah.
So is that you guys' like main, like how you guys got attracted to each other and like that chemistry and that energy, or is that how did you be able to like formulate that relationship into where you are today, D? Like how did you where did the relationship come from for you?
Between Free and I, that the relationship has been like we've always had like us, like we've always had the art, and yeah, to an extent, like yeah, that cemented us, like in our relationship. The hard times, like I think that's with anybody's friendship. Hard times really defines whether or not someone's your friend or their associate or they're your family.
Absolutely.
And so that's what really showed that we cemented us as family. For me,
sure, there's some relatable things as well. So what was like relatable? Like what did you kind of go through that experience that resonated so much with Free? Like I'm sure.
Oh man, just understanding the heartbreak, understanding just everything, and being the person going through their own things. Because I've slowly just started to come into my own and understand what it is that I've been dealing with. Being a father of two sons, like my youngest has been like the eye opener. Like my oldest was the eye opener as to me really diving into my art being the thing that I'm doing and really be the road and the career that I follow. My youngest has been the eye opener as to, okay, you really need to make sure that you are okay though. Because if I am not okay, then me doing all of this is really disconnected and really shallow. And that's not what I started doing spoken word for in the first place. It was actually my therapy. When I first started in elementary school, it was to impress a girl. But as I
appreciate you for keeping it
know
real.
What I'm saying? Like that was in elementary school. Roses are red, violets are blue. Baby girl, I got this ring and it's for you. Like,
is that the first one?
You know what I'm saying? Like
that's the line.
That was the first one. You know, I gotta ask if you end up getting the girl, but
no.
Did it work?
No, it did not. Lose was hard. But like in middle school, like I wrote what I thought was gonna be like my last poem because I was planning on like committing suicide because I didn't feel like sufficient enough. And one of the girls read, one of my closest friends.
Can I ask how old you were?
I was probably like 12, 13.
It's important to mention that because we speak about how early on you can catch some of these issues, right, that we're having internally.
Yeah.
So you kind of already at 12, you was kind of experiencing that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was just like I'm really, really sad, or I don't like what's going on, and this sounds like a solution right now that I can actually control. And so after a friend of mine read the poem, she cried and asked me to like continue to keep writing. So like from that point on, that's what I kept doing. And even as throughout the year, it's definitely saved my life because I've definitely put myself in a very, very, very key spot, or at least for me, it's a very key spot because I've managed to network, managed to love on, managed to grow with such a community that has uplifted me when I didn't feel like I deserved it. And so through that, and through actually, trusting the community and as recent, like trusting family and being like, trusting people outside of blood and being like, all right, you love on me the right ways. You listen to me the right way, like the ways that I want to be heard, the ways that I want to be felt, the ways that I want to be seen. You see me in these ways. Can you continue to? Can you guys help me? Can you guys, like reaching out to these folks, and then seeking my own help, seeking therapy on my own behalf to make sure that, like, all right, I am doing the work. I'm not just relying on other people, but I'm also doing the work myself.
What age did you start learning about therapy and start finding the support?
Therapy, I didn't start learning about until like 30. Like I knew about it, but therapy, talking to somebody, paying somebody to hear you. I got friends for that. I got family for that. Like, I look like going into an office and talking to. I'm good. But at 30, like it really started to settle in. Like, all all right, if I do go and talk to somebody, like, who do I talk to? And when I did go, the first time I went was.
How'd you find that person?
And that's what I was about to get into.
Cool, 'cause I wanna...
So, like, first, somebody sent me a website. Somebody sent me a website which was to a study, which was a depression study. So I went, I signed up for it, went, when I went, I was self-medicating. I'm still self-medicating, smoking my weed, whatever. So I went in, and one of the questions is, like, are you self-medicating? Yes. How often do you self-medicate? Do you really want to know the truth on this answer? So I told him a fraction of that, which is 3 times. Not at the time. I'm doing this way more than that. But we'll just tell them 3 times. So I tell them that, and when I get into the office with this older white guy that looks like Colonel Sanders, once I saw this guy, I was like, this is not going to be good at all. So, like, not only did he tell me that I had depression, but, like, he started to question.
I've been going to therapy for some months now, and we've uncovered that I'm a mess. But that's okay, because I'm a work in progress. And progress has been hard. There have been tears. There have been times I wanted to say, fuck you, and instantly didn't have the energy for exploration on why I'm projecting and verbally attacking my therapists. But this isn't a poem about my therapy or my therapist. It's about the topic that we touched on. Why I don't write I in my poems. Keep a distance from me and my vulnerability, and directly identify with an issue and explain it in less than 4 minutes. So, I wrote a word bank that soon became a list. Why heartbroken, depression, anger, shame, smile, abandonment, value, happy, art, trauma, self-care, healing, fear, tears, broken, and made these feelings personal. I arrived at therapy to understand my healing, like why I searched for black women to mend my broken heart, like why I brought myself to a mic to find my value instead of walking along the end of a blade, kicking a stool and just hanging around. Not putting me in a poem became my method of self-care. Not addressing my depression out loud was remedy, and not finding my trauma nor uncovering my fear of abandonment became my sessions of weed smoke. Toke, self-medicate because I've been feeling exposed, transparent. How my anger and shame make cocktails in the pit of my gut, and I'm always anxious as to when bad shit will happen again. And again, I'm feeling naked, exposed in front of my kids. Did yesterday. I put myself together to today, watch myself fall apart. Is this a father? I call myself a role model. Positive reinforcement, not writing I is me, flashing a warm smile to hold up the tears when a friend asks me if I'm okay, or pose as happy in a sea of people, exude something of worth when I feel worthless, because how am I to get out of this depressive whirlpool again? Calm my tides enough to not rage and to not drown anyone else in my sorrows. I made these feelings personal, because they are personal, and uncovered a teary mess, because it's hard, and it hurts, but that's okay, because it's a work in progress.
Like, not only did he tell me that I had depression, but, like, he started to question why was I doing all the things that I was doing after he already said that I had depression. It was like, you already have the answer to that. You already know why I'm here. You already know why I'm smoking. You already know why I'm not like why.
Why do you keep asking all these questions?
So, and I understood it was a study. Understood this was just to assess whether or not I could take the new drug that they wanted me to take. I didn't necessarily want to take the drug in the first place, but I at least would think as a licensed psychologist, you would try to tell me something like a little bit, not nicer, but like in softer words.
Yeah.
So like,
Delivery's
because the approach was a little bit too harsh for me. I was like, I knew from that point on that I was gonna look for somebody that looked like me, somebody that understood my environment, someone that went through not exactly everything that I went through, but understood what I was going through, or at least went through some of those things. So I then looked for, somebody then sent me a list of therapists, and then I looked through them, and then I found this guy named Charles Daniels, who is the co-founder of this place called Fathers Uplift, which is not strictly it's support for fathers, but not strictly for just fathers of color. And so they help all fathers, even fathers that are incarcerated, when they first get out. They make sure they give them a bag, help them to get work, help them to really find living spaces, like help them to live a sustainable life, to help them maintain a relationship with their children. Okay. And so that's
super dope, by the way. I never heard of this organization. What we'll do is after, when we put it out, I'll make sure we get that link. We can share the link for other people that want to be able to find that similar support.
Yeah, dude,
for sure.
Because that it's helped me incredibly for the last year that I've been there. Like I've been able to not only like write new and deeper poems and more raw and vulnerable poems, but I've also been like the relationships that I've been able to have with people, the way that I feel about myself has changed, and the way that I'm able to think things through has changed. So it's been like valuable to me. So it's been great.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And I appreciate it, because even myself, I've had similar experiences. I like the way you found your therapist, because myself was just like, I'm calling my provider. They gave me a book of 30 pages. I'm just like, okay, where do I start? And I found somebody that really, so I was benefited. I found somebody that I enjoy. And, but, I think there's other avenues as well. So that's an avenue. I went through my health provider.
Man, I'm like, I want a queer, black specialist in this particular thing. They're like, nah, sis, that don't work. They're not out here.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that want the same. So what did you do?
Before we move forward, I got a question from the side. As you guys have gone through these therapy sessions and have realized how much you needed it, have you seen people that you're like, damn, you're in that space before I had therapy. You need to talk to someone. And how have you been able to help them?
I haven't. I haven't been the person to jump on the, hey, you're where I used to be, so you should do what I did, because that's not necessarily everybody's steps, and that's unfair to do that to them. I can advocate for therapy and advocate for the way that I approached it. Because I didn't go there to fix anything. I went there to have a better understanding of myself, and therefore be able to adjust, therefore to be confident in the way that I am, and bring myself, be present to the world and to my community as I am. And so I haven't done that, but the way that I speak to folks isn't as if I am all-knowing. I speak as I am understanding, as allow everyone, and Free can most likely speak on the behalf of somebody that's asked me questions before, where I don't try to act like I know better. I just try to understand what's going on and try to help what's the best in the situation, or what's best for that person.
I think it's a great point, because I like your approach to it. My approach was a little different. I'm like, yo, this dude is amazing. I need you to try. I need you to try. I need you to try, right? Because I was so excited, right? Because I say, we're in a biased world. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of you walk into a room, you know how you already feel, right? So it's like that. I went in and there was no judgment. There was no bias. I was just able to just tell him what I want. It's funny because he'll talk, and I'm like, you know what? No, let me take over. I could do that. I could just take over and let it out. And then sometimes I'll be reserved. I'm like, you know what? I need to get it from you, right? So it's like, I was so excited, so I was like, I need to share this with the world. And so, but that may not be the right approach. I think more than anything, it's just being able to share your experiences. If somebody's like, yo, you sound like, you got it put together, I give credit to the community behind me, right? The friends and family, the mother, the brothers. I mean, I got brothers that I love to, and I got so many family members. So it's like, I get to give the credit to the ones that really supported me and got me to where I'm at today. Make sense?
Yeah.
So Free, how about you?
How wrong with shouting it to the world if you have a great experience with something that was helpful to you, because you then become a resource for someone that maybe doesn't necessarily have enough courage to say they need help. And so by you shouting it out is like, whoa, I'm not going to tell you I need it, but I heard you. And so I'm going to try to figure out well, if you feel this good, like I want to know what that feels like. So maybe I could explore this, you know, and it opens the door for some, like, you know,
so
exploration.
How are you doing it? Are you doing it through poetry, or are you doing it through, like, how do you express what you're working on?
The first time I chose to go to therapy on my own free will.
But let's go back to the original. How did you find the person? Because I know you had, like, your kind of like your checkpoints, your check boxes, right? So how did you find, or are you still finding where you are in that
Well, the
process?
key is free will. So I've been going to therapy since I was about 4 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So as an adult, I shy away from therapy because of that. And, you know.
Was it it was rough in the beginning, meaning the person didn't quite understand?
It was just forced. I mean, imagine living your childhood, you know, this is what your household looked like, and then you got to spend time talking to this white lady about, like, what am I talking to you about at 3 years old? And then we got to talk about how my parents is fighting, and I don't know what the heck's going on, but you're giving me these blocks to play with, and I'm, like, sitting in the middle of the floor talking, like, what do you do at 5, at 6? You don't know.
It was just too
soon. But I think not even too soon. It gave me an experience, but, like, was it conducive? Did I get something out of it? No, it taught me a lot about how therapy works. And then I was like, every time I go to therapy, I'd be like, all right, I know you're going to ask me this question. I'm going to have to talk about this again. I'm just going to tell you about this because, and then let your insurance not cover that. And you got to find somebody else. Guess what? You got to start that story all over again. Okay, so then when I was 5, and it became a very repetitive thing. At 16, it was mandatory. I had to go through anger management therapy and whatever, and, you know, and all this other stuff. And as an adult, at the particular time that I chose willingly to find a therapist, I did it through my insurance. At the time, I was working the job that I had and provided me the insurance, and I got it in my network. And it was I asked for a black woman, and I went, you know, just like, oh, well, that was my criteria, right? Someone was black who accepted queer people and whatever. And so I went, and it was cool, I guess. It gave me somebody to talk to. But I don't feel challenged. I don't feel pushed in a way that, you know, these days in my life, I'm in need of. Like, more currently where I am today, I'm seeking, you know, something more advanced. You know, cognitive therapy is great. Cognitive behavioral therapy is great. I'm looking, you know, there's another one called dialectical behavioral therapy, which is more specific, or it's a different training, it's a different tool, if you will. But, like, you know, expensive as hell, you know what I'm saying, if you don't have insurance. And, like,
I got the number. Can I share the number real
yeah,
quick?
please.
The number for depression and getting support for it, $7,000 for 8 days of care.
8 days, fam. 8 days of 30 years of trauma. Like, do the math. Like, how much you want me to?
It's wild.
8 days, and that's like an hour per session. That's
Yeah, and then when you graduate college, 6 days later, you got a bill for $700 to pay back your loan. Like, wait, I ain't even got a job yet. What you mean?
Take the money and just pay off the student
Yo,
loan.
I graduated in 2012. I swear to you, my college still calls me for donations. I'm like,
I'm still working on this last payment. You talking about giving you more? Yeah.
Like, because I'm not paying them. They got their bread, you know. Like, the loan people are the ones that are like, I need my bread. The schools, like, we paid. Can you give us more money? We like,
Hey, so
you give me money, like.
I got one.
Like,
No, but my school.
Give me back my money. How about
My
that?
school got bought out by another school. Why is the other school calling me for the money that I owe?
I'm done.
Like,
See, they trying to go after everybody. Like, it's crazy.
Yo, that's legit like a credit agency, man. That's what they do is, like, if you owe on that couch from IKEA $2,000 and you don't pay it, they end up selling it to another creditor, and then they start calling you. So it's like creditors, man. They're like sharks in the water. That's wild.
Yeah.
Did you go to AI?
huh?
Did you go to AI? The other schools that got bought out.
Yeah.
So just speaking about the barriers, right? Because I think part of this is removing the stigma behind getting support, right? I think that's important. And you speak about how you were younger, Free, and you needed behavior management. But when I saw you today, love. I think came through and showed everybody love, gave everybody a hug. It wasn't even just that. It was like you met somebody and you knew there was good energy and you just like, yo, let me get a hug. You know what I'm trying to say? And I love that. I think that's contagious, but that's a lot of like from behavior, like because now I'm even doubting the fact that you even needed it, right? I'm thinking like there's probably a different way of getting to you, right? And kind of supporting you at that time, but it wasn't through behavior management because it almost seems like you were a loving person. Just may not be able to see it. So how did that happen? How did you go from like?
Well, love is within you, first of all. Like, you
Love
know,
is love.
that's a
You said in the beginning you
spiritual,
love
like, energetic, like, thing. And I think, like, and I'm a Cancer, not for nothing, gang, Cancer gang. And, you know, now I love, I just do. And I'm not afraid of that. And I think that doesn't take away from the ways I need to heal and the ways that I can be toxic, you know what I'm saying? Or the ways that I've been toxic. That doesn't take away from me wanting love, like to love. Like you know, I think that if we can continue to remember love, you know, in very tough moments,
That's important. Tough moments.
you know, to always lead with love first, you know, with people that in general, like it should be a human thing. Like human interactions and energy exchanges are so necessary for us as humans. Like people forget that. And so like I think energy and love transference is important, just to, you know, when we talk about unification and we talk about how we're going to change these systems and have these conversations, well, like let's come from a place of like you know, and that means like me not going on podcasts or seeing podcasts that talk about still in 2019, you know, homophobic things that, you know, you support, you know, the artist that comes on your platform but it's super homophobic. Like, wait, what? Where's the love? Especially in this day and age. Like, where does that and I think that, yeah, that's why I'm so like, but that doesn't take away from the stuff I need to work on, you know, the things that I do carry and the ways that I've hurt people and relationships that I've been in. And I think that accountability is a real thing. And I've been facing that a lot recently. And I got to figure that out. That's my job and my responsibility.
I think, you know, we're all trying to figure it out, you know what I mean? And it just, I tip my hat to you for sharing your story and everything you've been going through, because I think, again, there's people out there that could really learn from this. And, you know, that's why we're not like other podcasts, because we really want to be able to help the next person. Even myself, my family, I have children, I have 3 girls. Like, they've had conversations. We spoke about sex at a really early age. We spoke about, you know, if you want to, you know, be a lesbian or not, that's totally up to you. I would never, you know, tell them what to do. I mean, I'm just there to support them, give them answers, and just kind of guide them in whatever direction they want to go in. So I just think that, you know, we can all learn from each other. And whatever you're going through, we're here for you as well, for sure.
Appreciate
and
that.
whatever we can do to help, for sure. I'm going to transition a little bit because there's a lot of numbers that I wanted to share with everybody on the podcast today. I'm going to talk about these numbers, and then I want to ask about what resonates the most from these numbers, right? So from the American Psychological Alliance, they're saying that $71 billion, the amount spent to treat depressive disorders, the most costly amongst disorders. 6th most costly, behind diabetes, $104 billion. Heart disease is at $81 billion. Back and neck pain is at $76 billion. So it's so bad right now that mental illness will cost the world $16 trillion by 2030.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not enough people doing the work.
We
On
spoke
themselves.
about that
We've got
earlier.
enough money to fix that, but we're just not.
How do you fix it if people ain't trying to fix themselves? I can't pay to fix you. I don't care how much money you put into the business. It doesn't matter. If I'm not willing to fix me, it's like your money is not going to pay for my treatment. Like it's not going. I could pay for treatment, right? I could show up to therapy. Yeah, I'm doing the work. I'm showing up, but like, are you? Like somebody wise told me that doing the work means in the moment, right? Showing up in the moment. So like if my thing is rage, if I have a problem with my temper, right? in a moment of conflict, when I get overwhelmed emotionally, like my work is how do I operate in that moment of being overwhelmed and whatever. Like, so yeah, you've gone to anger management, whatever, but like, are you using the tools you got from anger management to work them in this moment? You know what I'm saying? And it took me a long time of going to this and that and the third. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the work. And it's like, nah, because when things shit hit the fan, I'm like, yeah. So you gotta revisit that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
But that's self stuff. That's revisiting yourself and like your own, mental.
Because they mentioned that earlier. They said there's a couple barriers in there. There's a lack of awareness, lack of access to free care or care, and there's a stigma behind it. So
yeah,
That's
facts.
the one.
Hell yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah. I think that's the one.
Which
because
one, the
that's
stigma
the
or?
stigma is the one. Because if you either don't see somebody getting help, or there's always so there's for the fellas, you don't want to necessarily act like a bitch. You don't want to be a pussy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm
and
too
especially
tough. I
like,
handle all
God,
these problems
I
on my
cannot
own.
believe it.
I've never needed nobody.
Like,
in my
that's-
life.
She just said we were fighting against people saying those things.
I know, like but those are the things that do get said. Like that's what gets said, and those are certain. Those are the things that when they get said, like certain people react to them differently.
I guess what he's saying is also, he
The way
recognizes
people are
how
The
those-
people out there that
addressing.
think that way.
Yeah, no, definitely. Still, like,
100%.
oh, if the moment you cry, I cry. And like, it's okay to cry. I'm a big advocate of tears. I am. And, people look at me like being masculine and center, like, oh, nah, you're not supposed to cry because then you weak. What's equal to tears and vulnerability, in masculinity, within masculinity, is equated to weakness all the time.
So
And
it's time
like,
to change the narrative. If
hell
anything, being
yeah.
able to shed tears shows a sign of
you know
strength.
how powerful it is to be
Yo.
able to be like, yo, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Identify the feeling.
Yeah,
Be like, yo, I'm hurt, and I need to get this out. Grieve.
yeah.
Really
Even if it's
express
not
that.
a personal death like of a body, but there are things you need to grieve in your life that don't have to be of another person,
Yeah.
or it is of another person or relationship, or the little person inside of you, or some parts of yourself that you need to let go of. Like, those are real things.
Well, I mean, that's why we're here, right? So Dee spoke about the perceptions that people's had. You spoke about how we got to change the narrative. And that's really, literally the fabric of today's conversation, is to be able to change that narrative and be able to understand what is real strength. What is, like, what can you really do to support yourself, and how important that is, rather than neglecting and being super masculine and saying we don't need those things, when we're here today to say, like, nah, there's nothing wrong with these things, right? We can get help, we can get support, we can make sure we get strong, we can unpack, we can, develop as individuals, and we shouldn't be judged for that. This is just part of our process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, got some more numbers for fun, because that last one was good. I got the National Alliance on Mental Illness. 2018, 19.1%, we'll just say 20% of adults have experienced mental illness. 47.6 million people, so 1 in every 5 people you meet has experienced mental health illness in some sort. In the youth, 16.5%. That's ages 6 through 17. That's 7.7 million. 43% has received treatment. So there's another 57% out there that's not receiving treatment, and it's 50% of youth that are absolutely getting hit with some of this illnesses.
That's even from everybody that
I think those numbers are short.
Yeah, like
Sure.
because that's
Explain,
because
please.
because
One
those
out
are
of
only
5
for
is-
people. Those are only for people that actually speak
It's
out
so
about
wide.
it.
I think you can narrow that in. Like, I think more. Maybe 1 out of 3.
1 out of 3.
But it takes a second because people have to be able to actually,
To identify it, and like when it is identified, and like how is it identified, and like people don't know that they are walking around with. I mean, come on, 1 out of 3 of us, PTSD is a real thing. It's a mental. It is.
No, 100%.
Okay,
100%.
and guess what? Black people.
if we living in the hood,
That's generational too. Like y'all don't get it. Like
Generational PTSD.
facts is what I'm saying.
Generational
Like we are
PTSD.
definitely all in here suffering from some form of like PTSD in some regard. Like that number is really low in those stats. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But we spoke about those are the individuals that came out.
yeah, that don't report it or
don't speak,
Right?
that speak
that
out
don't
about it.
exist under.
Right?
You know,
So in our belief, if people spoke about it more, it would be possibly more towards 1 out of 3.
it would probably be a lot higher. I wouldn't
Even
be
think you
surprised
could
if it
put a
was
number
half.
on that, bro. Like
It would probably be a half.
now
because,
we start rebirthing. You know, we have children. We learn what healthy love is and healthy nourishment, self care and self stuff. You know, you want to birth families, or if you already have a family, bring that back to your family, so that way that those systems that we learned like growing up, we gotta bring that back home. You know, we have to bring that back home. I do that, you know, in conversations with the people that, even the people that have hurt you in your life that are family. You know, a lot of the people that loved you the most and the closest to you are the ones that are gonna hurt you. That's a fact, right? So a lot of us hold a lot of pain from families and family dynamics and close people to us. And a lot of us have that like throw it away mentality, like, well, F it, I ain't gonna deal with it. Like, but hurt from it and won't say like, oh, you hurt me, you know what I'm saying? And I don't like that you did that. And it be a place of peace to have that conversation. And, you know, speaking from experience, like I've never had the tools to be able to have those kind of conversations in a healthy way, where I felt like I could be like, hey, you hurt me. Like I could never go to my mom and be like, hey, you hurt me. I did try that at 16, mandatory therapy. We tried to bring my mom in for a session. I was like, yeah, so, you know, when you hit me at 6, whatever that, she was like, I never hit you, and walked out of the therapy session. And I was just like, oh, well, there's that. And to this day, I've never had a therapy session with my mom. Shout out to my mom again. We have recently decided to go back and explore that. Hell yeah.
Super dope.
My mom has done a lot of work, you know, and we're trying to do a lot of work together to heal and mend that stuff, which is super important.
I think it's super important, and again, I tip my hat because I know myself, my family knows I've had issues with my relationship with my mother, so, you know, maybe you're schooling me right now and how to handle it, but it is what it is, but we'll work on it.
And time. We're
Yeah.
talking about time and
time.
alignment and the way it works and like.
And now, just to kind of touch on it even more, the next step for me is, I got children, man. Like, I don't want generational, you know, passing over, right? So I got to make sure my children are strong. So the stronger I am, and the more we learn from whatever history we've had, the more I can better support my children and making sure they don't go through those same experiences. And I'm sure Dee can relate with 2 sons. You spoke about that earlier.
Yeah,
that's a big part of your motivation.
Listen, it was a page. Well, it's a life changer. So it's like peeling back layers because it's first it's really peeling back enough to get back to the child to really focus on that, because everything, at least from what I've experienced, everything is like layered on itself. So every part of your life, there's always something that spoils, something bad that happens that you end up healing over. But then there's another thing that happens that you heal. So there's still a constant layer of healing. But for me, I haven't addressed all that healing until I start peeling back all those layers. So for me, I've had to peel back so many layers. Like, okay, from this relationship. So once I got down to the root and got down to the child part, which is where my sons are, it's more so, okay, what do I have to address with my own father? And I've had the opportunity to talk to him. I've had the opportunity to shed tears with him. He's popped up on me very like out of the blue like 2 years ago, and it wasn't like, it's not like my father and I have not spoken. It's not like we go years and years without speaking. We might go months, but it might not be years and years. Like I do my best to try to talk to him, and I know he tries his best to talk to me. But he's the only person, he's one of the first people that I've seen go through mental health issues. And so seeing him and how he responded to it, it wasn't going to therapy, it was self-medicating, and self-medicating didn't necessarily work when you do it in abundance and you take it out on.
It's like a
and it's-
Band-Aid, right? It's
yeah,
a
it
bunch of
start-
Band-Aids.
and-
You're not really getting to the
And
root.
then after a while, it starts to be a suicide wish. Like, you start to purposely overdo things. You start to purposely put yourself in harm's way. It's not a suicide, like, it's not a death wish, but it's like you put yourself in harm's way.
Absolutely. I want you to finish that thought, but I got more. My last piece
Go
of
ahead.
numbers, because you touched on it, and that's the absolute last kind of piece I want to talk about. I know we don't want to get too seriously involved in this one, but suicide is real. You know what I mean? It is real. It's the second leading cause of death amongst ages 10 through 34.
10 through 34?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Since 2001, there's been an increase of 31%, and 90% showed symptoms.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked in
And that's it. I'm not going to.
And I've worked with kids, so I can actually say, like, I've worked with kids in residential care, and that was one of the things, like, and it's sad when it's a lot of black and brown kids that are in there that are doing, like, I'm not trying to exclude any other group, but I can only speak for
Well,
me
you
and
speak off your
mine, so,
experience,
like,
what you've known, yeah.
that's what I know and that's what I see, and I can understand why there is a lot of social pressures, there is a lot of family pressure.
Social media did not help either.
Yeah, and social media
you
just,
can use it for
put
good,
it in
but if you use it
overdrive.
for like negative, then it's completely
it just put it into
counterproductive at this
overdrive.
point.
And so for me, that's I understand that entirely, because, like, it's not easy when you are expected to be at a certain place at a certain age. You're expected to be a certain person because you look a certain type of way. If I'm passing by Blue Eyes, most times I look like I'm going to be selling weed to somebody. I know of course I smoke, but looking at me, that's the first thing everybody can say. Oh yeah, you definitely smoke. But realizing that I have 2 kids, realizing that I'm a spoken word artist, like, that's something, like, realizing that I am a director of a program, like, that's not stuff that.
Can I give a quick, like, because we talked about that, because even through all the BS, the bullshit, right? You guys have found ways to still find yourselves and be successful, and that should be celebrated. Because I know that was a bit morbid, but I just want the people that are out there that sees a lot of difficulty directly in front of them, that there's people out here that's been through those moments, and they've been able to grow and push through. Very difficult, but it's absolutely capable, right? And you guys are living examples of it. Rough passes, moments where you guys were like, "Yo, this is not working," but did whatever needed to be done, found the support that you needed, and then now you guys are here today to speak about it, to support the next generation or the next group of people that need that type of support.
Definitely.
So just want to celebrate you guys for that as well. So can I do that one more time?
Yeah.
So for me, this is my last way to plug you guys, right? So just to kind of like give you guys an opportunity to share what you guys are working on. I know you touched on it earlier, and I know you touched on it, but do you guys want to kind of elaborate one more time on what you guys are working on moving forward, so people could like stay connected to you guys?
Well, you can follow me Instagram. It's PHREE_DOM. So
Free is her
Freedom.
name, though. I apologize about that. I
Free is my
didn't. I just saw Freedom. And I was like, that's the dopest name ever, but it's
Thank
free.
you. I
Sorry,
appreciate
but
No, I have friends that call me Freedom. Not like that's just their endearment,
Okay.
thing, and I welcome it.
so I'm not there yet. I gotta
Just
keep
like
working on the
no,
list.
you can say it, but like don't print it. But like don't print it on like a not
Yeah,
you print it on a flyer. But like
yeah.
I'm just saying
Phrase
it for
it
the
and-
world. Like
Gotcha.
print it. It's been printed on flyers where it'd be like Freedom and like.
Gotcha.
So yeah, follow me there. And yeah, I did take a little break from. I was talking about this earlier. From the collective. Because it is super important that dealing with my mental health right now and like trying to nourish myself, and
100%.
you can't pour from an empty cup.
I love that. You can't
You
pour
know?
from an empty cup.
Yeah, and so I've gotta fill myself and come back, to it, So I'm working on it. It is coming back January 2020. We will be, holding another space, another meetup for that. feel to speak it, but I'll let you.
Hey.
And we got some things working 2020. 2020 is gonna be a big year. A big year. There are a lot of things I'm working on the low.
Yes.
But we'll.
And you can find me D_RUFF3 on IG and Twitter. And yeah, December 7th, soiree, another installment. Don't ask me where it is, I don't know yet. But no, it is happening December 7th. I believe it's 6 to 9, I believe, but you should be able to see that you'll see that on my IG or on my Twitter very soon. Other than that, every second Thursday of the month for the last 10 years, we've been at the Milky Way. So again, every second Thursday of the month, doesn't matter, rain, sleet, or snow, does not matter. We've been doing it consistently 10 years. You guys can meet us over at the Milky Way at the If You Can Feel It. You can speak it. Open mic. Just come on through and we'll try to show you all types of newbie love.
So, on behalf of the Lifted team, I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know the subject was tough, so I appreciate it. Before I even thought of the idea, of having this type of conversation, I didn't know how to do it, where to go with it. I just felt like it needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And when I thought of Free and all the work you've done, and I know you're a big part of the work that she does, and you guys work together collectively, I couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else. So for me, it's deeply appreciated. I think you guys agree that you guys would come on and speak on this, so I appreciate it. I hope you guys continue to find success. I hope you guys kill it in spoken word. And there is a treat for you guys. I had to pay her a whole lot of money. I had to pay her a whole lot of money.
Cheers.
I had to pull personal connections. What up, P?
Shout out to my fam. My fam, am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, of course,
my
man.
cousins came through. My blood cousins came through. Shout out to y'all. I love y'all. Thank you for being here and supporting me.
She came in and felt the love right away. She's like, okay, everybody's here. That's what's up. But no, I appreciate it, P. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you for coming on, D. I know this was your first, witnessing what Lift is about. So hopefully, you guys got something out of this experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully the next person that's watching this can get something out of the experience. And that to us is ultimately the goal, is to be able to touch those individuals and let them know that the stigma is kind of BS. It's no, just get the support, and we'll share some resources and links afterwards so they can see it. Hopefully they can come watch you guys perform. And with all that money we had to put down, they're going to go ahead and perform for us today too. So be on the lookout for that as well. So on behalf of the team, we appreciate you guys watching. Stay focused and stay lifted.
Yeah.
My mother never loved someone as much as she did him, till she had kids. But by then, her broken became a weapon. Damaged by the absence of his loyalty, his kiss turned her inside out. Heartbeat bleeding on sleeves she always wore like skin. Skin like masochist, like love that never felt as good as he did. And her mother, bred by the toughest street corners, cementing blood-stained dreams of making it rich, led her to be convinced that eye for an eye mentality would be the reason she had lost one. Would be the reason she stared down at love through the barrel of a gun with the other one, firing with resentment, as rage conceded to heartbreak, as infidelity laid on her sheets. It's heartbreak that turned her finger into a trigger pin. My mom found love in that man's arms at the age of 18. Her father, still a story made up of fiction novels. Convolution and confusion bordered in imagination, crafted to silence her curiosity. Her mother gave up on explaining his absence the day she surrendered her kids. Blisters boiled from her heels from walking the heated concrete. Barefoot, no shoes to fill. And my mother wore shoes to fill in for her absence. And my father took the place of her weakness, took the place of the melanin my mother always claimed as hers but wasn't birthed with. My nana though was brown skinned. Afro stood tall and well built like Black Panther. Picked from the roots of cotton fields, but still wasn't strong enough to avoid falling to the hands of anger. At 6, I watched my sister be beaten by anger, by rage, by the hands of a mother whose heart broke as hard as the end of a broomstick, whose infuriation turned the melanin from my sister's skin blue, like mine bruised. At 8 and at 10, and my hate didn't really stop until about the age of 22. I heard my sister scream as loud as her broken would allow her. My father gone, left my mother with 2 babies to raise, unstable, pulled on her heartstrings as hard as he worked to charm her. When he came home, my mother always allowed him home love, always felt like home, broken and unstable, but forgiving and dependable, like the best and the worst of both worlds, which just couldn't have one without the other. And I always thought I could bring food to the table, but I never really learned how to cook, never really learned how not to burn the food on the outside before it was done, like chicken when it's fried. And the outside looks so good, but the inside is still bleeding and raw and cold and poison. My mother is still hurt, my father is still gone, my nana dead, my sister bruised, and I'm still poisoned. Still beating on abandonment like it owed me something, like walking out isn't forever, even when they choose to come back and I choose to let them in. Still blaming my mother for my anger, still picture my father's forehead split when infidelity crept up on his bed. My mother still denies I cried for help, for comfort, still holds my hands with the same palms that she slapped me with, the same fist that kissed my skin and turned it inside out broken. But I still love her, I still forgive her, and I'm still asking for forgiveness. And you know what they say, the apple don't fall too far from the tree, and that be the same tree that feeds my relationships. The same apple that turned Eve into a sin of defiance, still lays blankets on the beds that I sleep in. Anger still has its way of tying its noose around my neck, and I'm still choking, still struggling to breathe, still hoping, still in need of comfort, still helpless and alone, still angel with no wings, still just her kid, still masochist, still weapon, still love, still love, still love, still home.